Hey everybody, I'm Juliana and you're watching Sprocket Girl. So last week on Sprocket Girl I did a cleaning of my bike with my friend Joel, or Bearded Mountain Biker, and now that my bike is nice and clean, I wanted to introduce you to my ride and kind of talk a little bit about what kind of bike I ride and what upgrades I've done to my bike since I bought it in 2017. So I ride a Specialized FSR Stumpjumper Expert, and technically it's classified as a men's medium-size bike. So I bought the bike in summer of 2017. It's the 2016 model, and I bought it from a local bike shop. I went there and I tried out a bunch of different types of bikes, women's bikes and men's bikes, and this was the bike that really felt like it fit me the most and was the most suited to what I would be using the bike for. So I mainly ride it around here in Colorado. A lot of the times we ride in the Front Range, so we have a lot of trails that are really kind of steep uphills and then downhills and then flowy hills and then a lot of steep downhills. It's just a mix of different kinds of trails, and I wanted a bike that was going to be able to handle all these different types of trails. So I didn't want just a purely downhill bike or just a pure climber bike. And I feel like with this bike I really hit the spot and found a bike that I can use pretty much anywhere I go. Like, I have not encountered a situation where I felt like I needed or wanted a different type of bike. Alright, let's get to it. So I have a full suspension bike. Let's take a closer look at the shocks. So the front shocks are RockShox Pikes with 150 millimeters of travel. And the rear shocks are the Fox Float CTDs, also with 150 mil of travel. So the front triangle is made out of carbon, and the rear triangle is made out of aluminum. And the front triangle has this really cool feature, which is called a SWAT Door. And the nice thing about it is that you can actually store things in the down tube of the front triangle in this little compartment here. It's really cool because it's big enough to put a spare tube in it, or some snacks, or tools, or anything you want to put in there. I've used this a lot and definitely comes in handy. Alright, so moving on, I have SRAM carbon cranks, and these pedals here are ones that I chose when I bought the bike. They're flats, obviously, they're chesters. And they have these little pins here that hold your foot in place. And I've had some mixed experiences with these chesters. The first year that I rode this bike, I actually slashed the back of my calf with these and had to go to the emergency room. These pins are really sharp, which made me then decide to ride pedals without pins for a while, which was not the best idea. So now I'm back to riding my original chesters. But what I do is that I use knee socks that are compression socks, and they're pretty thick, so I haven't had any issues with slashing my legs anymore. Alright, so moving on to the drivetrain, I have a 1x11 drivetrain, which means that I have one chainring in the front, which has 30 teeth, and in the back, the cassette consists of 11 gears. So in addition to the SRAM cranks, I also have a SRAM X01 11-speed derailleur. The tires that I'm riding on this bike are the original Specialized tires. In the back I have the Purgatory 650B, which has a width of 2.3 inches, and the size of the wheel is a 27.5 inch. The front tire is pretty much the same, except that instead of a Purgatory it's a Butcher, but also by Specialized, and also a 2.3 inch width. So the brake system on the bike is by Shimano, so it's Shimano XT, a hydraulic system with disc brakes. And the other thing I can talk about in the front is that I swapped out the original Specialized grips for more cushy, softer grips by Ergon. Specifically, they're the Ergon GA2s, and I have to say that that was one of the best changes I've made on my, or upgrades I've made on my bike since I bought it. I tend to have some wrist issues, and my wrists hurt a lot. And instead of buying new or different gloves, I just decided to upgrade my grips, and it has really made a huge difference. Like, I don't have a lot of wrist issues anymore since I got these grips, so definitely something that I could recommend. So the dropper post that I have on this bike is a Command Post IRcc, which came with the bike. I have to say, I love my dropper post. I have ridden bikes that did not have the dropper post, and I couldn't imagine not having it now or going back to one that doesn't have it, especially since the type of riding we do around here is a lot of alternating uphill and downhill kind of flowy trails, and it's so nice to just be able to, at will, lower and raise your seat without having to get off the bike. So another thing I need to mention here is that when I bought the bike, since it was classified as a men's bike, it came with a men's saddle, and I bought a female-specific saddle from the bike shop, but it turns out that after about a year of riding, I realized that it wasn't cushy enough, so I started to get my butt started to hurt after a while, and so I just took the saddle that I had on my commuter bike and put it on here. And it's really squishy. It's kind of like a granny saddle, I would say. So if you want to know more specifically what saddle this is, in case you want to get a granny saddle too, it's the Sporttourer Zoo. Okay, so one last thing to mention that I changed or upgraded since I bought the bike is that I bought the MuckyNutz front fender, so it's the half size. And I have to say that was a really good purchase. It's not particularly expensive, so it was a no-brainer to buy. And also, it doesn't only protect me from muck and mud and rocks, but also it protects the front stanchion from being scratched by anything that's sprayed up onto it.
What are you doing there?
Just trying to get it up. Okay, so one additional feature that is also pretty cool on this bike is that it has a storage area up here for a chain breaker, and it also has 2 master links that come with it in case you have any chain problems. I personally haven't used this yet, but it's really nice to know that I do have this on my bike at all times. Screw that back in.
Screw it back in.
So personally, I really love this bike. It suits my needs very well out here in Colorado with all the different types of trails that we have. Personally, I haven't encountered a situation yet where, for instance, I would have needed more travel, or I would have wanted smaller or larger wheels. So I'm very happy with my 27.5s. I know this is a very personal preference, and a lot of people love their 29ers or their 26ers. But for my needs and what I'm doing out here, 27.5s are great. So one thing I did want to mention is that technically this is considered a men's bike. So when I bought it, they told me, oh, you're buying a men's bike. I personally don't think that's a problem. Like, I tried women's and men's bikes, and this is just the one that fit me best. I would just encourage you to try any type of bike, whether it's classified as a women's or a men's or a unisex bike. I think it's just important to find a bike that fits you, like your body, and the needs that you have regarding biking. And it doesn't really matter what it's classified at. That's just my personal opinion. Okay, so I talked about what bike I'm riding at the moment, the upgrades that I've made in the last year and a half. And then for the upcoming biking season, I think the next thing that I would want to upgrade is probably the tires. So when these guys do go out and it's time to get new tires, I think I'm going to get the 2.5-inch width tires, just because that'll give a larger surface area for the tires to grip on like loose and maybe dusty ground. Alright, thank you so much for watching today, and let me know in the comments below if you have any questions about my Stumpy and about the specifications I talked about today. And also if you have any tips on things that you think would be worth upgrading. And if you just want to talk about the bike that you're riding. I'm really curious to know, and just feel free to drop me a comment. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you like Sprocket Girl. Thanks so much. See you next time. Bye.